Her daughter-in-law screamed on the front lawn as the police wrote her a trespass warning. Greg stood frozen, watching the house he thought he'd inherited welcome someone else's family. Elaine didn't raise her voice. She raised the deed. By sunset, the keys were in another woman's hands, and the past was locked out for good. This wasn't revenge. This was reclamation. And the last person they expected to outmaneuver them was the woman they'd tried to sideline. We're about to begin, but if you'd like, share where you're joining from. It reminds me this story doesn't echo into silence, it lands somewhere real. Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. The silverware clinked softly against the porcelain plates, but I barely heard it. I was too focused on the sound of Brittany's laugh, sharp, shiny, like a wine glass cracked just enough to cut. "She's just his mother, I'm his future." She said it in a whisper, but not the kind meant to be private. No, it was the kind meant to be overheard. That laugh followed, warm and fake, bubbling between bites of cranberry compote and privilege. I stood in the kitchen archway, holding an empty dish, invisible. Her parents chuckled along like they were in on a joke. Greg didn't say a word. Worse, he smiled, that weak, complicit smile he'd started wearing since Brittany began reimagining my home. Not a flicker of protest, not a glance in my direction. The turkey smelled perfect, brined with sage and lemon the way I taught Greg when he was 12. The table still had my mother's embroidered runner, the one I brought out every Thanksgiving for the past 38 years. But suddenly, none of it felt like mine. Brittany had taken over hosting, though the address hadn't changed. She said it with a grin that made it sound like I should be grateful. Her decorations, soft beige pumpkins, a tiered serving tray, fake eucalyptus, sat on my grandmother's sideboard like placeholders for taste. I kept my face smooth as custard and brought out the sweet potatoes. No one noticed the slight tremble in my hands. No one offered to help clear. No one looked back when I walked to the kitchen alone. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just entitlement. It was erasure. I could still hear them chatting in the dining room, Brittany's voice lilting with curated charm. I scraped plates into the sink, rinsed forks, counted the rhythm of my breath. 4 inches. Hold. 6 out. That trick had gotten me through widowhood. It worked again now. On the windowsill above the sink sat a tiny porcelain sparrow Greg made in 3rd grade. He'd given it to me after a field trip to the art museum. "To guard your kitchen," he'd said. I remembered it clear as sunlight. I looked at that little bird now and wondered when exactly he'd stopped guarding me. I dried my hands, turned off the light, and walked down the hallway, past the stairs, past the guest coats slung across the banister like they owned the place. Upstairs in my room, the air smelled faintly of lavender and old paper. I opened the closet and knelt in front of the cedar chest. Inside were memories, baby shoes, a few letters from my late husband Henry, and a folder tucked neatly in the back. My fingers didn't hesitate. I pulled it out, stood up, and sat at my vanity, where the lamplight made the paper glow yellow at the edges. The deed. Still crisp. Still signed. Elaine Harper, sole owner of 1327 Willowbend Lane. I stared at my name, inked in permanence. Not Greg's, not Brittany's, mine. The silence in the room shifted, no longer empty but full of something steady, something old and rising. A picture frame on my dresser held a photo from Greg's college graduation. I was in the front row, beaming in a navy dress I had no business affording, holding his cap in my lap. Brittany stood beside him even then. Always in the frame, never behind it. I remembered when she first came into our lives, all lacquered nails and earnest ambition. I wanted to like her. I tried. But over the years, that ambition bloomed into possession. I put the photo down, carefully. Downstairs, Brittany was laughing again, that brittle, glass-breaking laugh. I slid the deed back into the folder, but not before pressing my fingertips to the seal, as if to remind the house who had always loved it. The house remembered. I could feel it. I stood, opened my bedside drawer, and placed the folder inside, right on top. My hand lingered on it. "I built this house," I said aloud, to no one. Time to remind them. The first thing I noticed was the backsplash. that cold gray subway tile with black grout, stark and sterile like an airport bathroom. It hadn't been there the week before. The warm honeycomb pattern Henry and I picked out in 1989 was gone, chipped off like it never mattered. I ran my hand over the slick surface. It felt like Britney, trendy, loud, and utterly indifferent to what came before her. "Oh, did you see?" she chirped from behind me, barefoot in her silky robe like she belonged to the place. "It really brightens up the kitchen, don't you think?" "I think it looks like everyone else's kitchen," I said, still facing the wall. She laughed like I'd complimented her. "Well, Greg thought it was time to update, especially with the holidays coming." Greg, my son, who once cried over a chipped mug because it was the one I always gave him hot chocolate in, now apparently fine with bulldozing sentimental things, so long as his wife called it modernizing. I turned to see her pulling biscotti from a ceramic jar I didn't recognize, and I moved the coffee mugs to the lower cabinet. The top shelf was too high for me. I didn't respond. I just stared at the space where my blue willow cups had lived for 40 years, moved without a word, rearranged like I was some antique to work around. Upstairs, or what used to be upstairs for guests, my new room felt like a hotel suite someone forgot to clean properly. The old master was now theirs. Brittany's perfumes lined the dresser. Greg's electric toothbrush blinked blue from the outlet. There were framed photos of their wedding beside the bed, but none with me in them. I hadn't agreed to move. I had simply been told the queen mattress was better for Brittany's back. At church last Sunday, Margaret Green hugged me tight and said, "It's so lovely you're letting them stay while you enjoy retirement. Downsizing can be such a relief." I had blinked, slow and confused. "I haven't moved." She tilted her head. "Oh, I thought Brittany said you were living in one of those senior garden homes near Forest Ridge." That night, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the new pendant lights Brittany had installed. She called them statement pieces. The only statement they made was that my voice didn't matter anymore. The house felt unfamiliar now, too open, too curated. My once cozy living room had been painted eggshell and rearranged into some sterile Pinterest board. The rocking chair Henry built sat in the garage, replaced by a beige sectional that swallowed the room and half the warmth in it. That's when I walked into my bedroom and opened the bottom drawer of the file cabinet. The deed was still there, unbothered, silent, loyal. My name, not theirs. No joint tenancy, no transfer of ownership. I'd never added Greg to the title. I'd never needed to. Greg had always said, "Don't worry about all that, Mom. We'll figure it out later." Later had arrived. I sat on the bed listening to the hum of the dishwasher. Another one Brittany had picked out. Stainless steel. Energy efficient. Soulless. There's a kind of clarity that comes when you realize you've been gently erased. It's quieter than anger. It's colder, like snowfall on a grave. I pulled my phone from the nightstand and scrolled through my contacts. Cassandra, my estate lawyer. 40 years of friendship, and not once had she ever told me what I wanted to hear, only what I needed. My thumb hovered a moment, then tapped out the words, "Let's talk Monday. Urgent. Elaine." The soft thunk of Cassandra's office door shutting behind me felt like a seal being pressed, the kind you place on letters you don't plan to open again. "Sit, Elaine. You look like you're ready to bite someone," Cassandra said, not looking up from her monitor, her red readers perched halfway down her nose. "I'm past biting," I replied, placing the folder on her desk with a deliberate thud. "I'm ready to amputate." That got her attention. She closed the laptop and pushed aside a stack of manila files. "Well, now I'm interested. Tea? Only if it's strong." She poured us both a cup. Black, steeped till it could strip paint, just how I liked it, then opened the folder. The deed, the original purchase agreement, the latest tax bill. Every signature line bore one name. "Fully paid off, no liens. You own it free and clear," she said, flipping through. "Not even a home equity loan. You really did keep it clean. Henry and I paid it off 15 years early. I never added Greg. He said he didn't want to deal with the paperwork." Cassandra's eyes flicked up, sharp and assessing. "He might regret that now." "Oh, he already does. He just doesn't know it yet." She leaned back, stirring her tea slowly. "So, What's the plan, Elaine? I want it out from under them. Quietly. Without drama. Until it's too late for drama to stop anything. That's asking for a unicorn, she said, but she was smiling now. Lucky for you, I raise them. I glanced out the window of her corner office. From up here, the world looked small and manageable, like all problems could be boxed up and filed. She went on. You do have options. A private sale, all cash buyers. No need for family signatures since you're the only owner. No HOA drama, no probate hang-ups. And I could sell while they still live there? You'd have to give them notice to vacate after closing, but yes. She paused, watching me. If you're bold enough. I thought of Brittany's voice echoing down my hallway. This house needs life, as if I hadn't raised one in it. I thought of my name disappearing from dinner conversations, my opinions treated like noise. I thought of my mother's quilt packed away to make room for Brittany's faux fur throws. I'm not just bold, I said. I'm invisible with teeth. Cassandra gave a low chuckle. You've been planning this a while, haven't you? Number. But they've been giving me reason for years. This Thanksgiving just sharpened the knife. Her fingers danced over her keyboard. We'll need a quiet listing agent, someone who works with cash buyers and keeps things off the MLS. And fast, I added. I want it done before Easter. She looked up, surprised. That soon? They think I'm fragile, sentimental, maybe even soft in the head. That's the danger of growing old with a polite smile. They forget you're still sharp. She nodded once, firmly. You can sell the house tomorrow if you like. The smell of fresh paint lingered in the front hallway, Brittany's favorite vanilla gray, all cool undertone and Instagram sheen. It was paint picked to impress strangers, not to warm a family. I ran my fingers along the edge of the stair banister, where the original oak had been sanded down and whitewashed like memory itself was something to bleach. She picked the color. I picked the price. Elaine Harper? The voice on the porch belonged to a woman in camel-colored heels and a structured blazer that didn't scream real estate. It whispered access. Jordan? I opened the door just enough to be polite. She gave me a firm nod and stepped in, scanning the foyer like a detective rather than a salesperson. Cassandra said you needed this kept discreet, she said, straight to the point. No yard sign, no public listing. You want it quiet. I want it done, I said. Her gaze traveled across the entryway, taking in the minimalist lighting, the designer console table. Looks like someone already tried to stage it. My daughter-in-law. I almost spat the words. Jordan raised an eyebrow. Good bones, though. And she didn't skimp. Quartz countertops, matte fixtures, recessed lighting. This place has real pull in the private market. She paused, then added, ironically, she increased the value she'll never see. I smiled. It was the first real one in weeks. We moved room to room, the heels of her boots clicking lightly against the newly refinished hardwood floors. In the dining room, she paused and tilted her head. Mind if I shift the furniture a bit? You've got great light, but this setup blocks the flow. Be my guest. I've been itching to move that credenza back where it belongs since she shoved it against the window. Jordan slid it effortlessly across the floor, hands practiced. This one's personal, huh? I raised my family in this house, I said, carefully smoothing the table runner. She's trying to raise her image in it. She gave a small, knowing laugh. Let's make sure she doesn't have either. Upstairs, we passed the now empty guest room, my room, where sunlight streamed through a crack in the blinds. The air smelled faintly of lavender and something synthetic. Brittany's diffuser. In the master, their clothes hung neatly in the closet, his and hers, all pressed and neutral-toned. She moved in, Jordan observed, voice low, without permission, without courtesy. I paused at the foot of the bed. She says things like open concept and entertaining space, but she never asked who paid for the foundation. She will, soon enough. When we reached the kitchen, Jordan pulled out her phone and snapped a few subtle photos. No listing, right? I asked. Off-market, she said. Private buyers only. I've got 3 serious investors who'd love a turnkey home in a neighborhood like this, especially one this clean. They're gone for the weekend. Some mountain retreat, I said. She booked it for their mental reset. I did air quotes with my fingers. Jordan chuckled. Perfect. I'll stage just enough for photos. You'll barely recognize the place Monday morning, in the best way. I nodded, more grateful than I expected to be. The house hadn't felt like mine in months, but suddenly I could see slivers of it returning. Not the furniture, not the fixtures. The feeling. It wasn't nostalgia. It was ownership. By dusk, Jordan had rearranged the front living room, placed soft throws over the sectional to soften its edges, and tucked a vase of sunflowers in the entryway, the kind of touch that sold homes quietly. She stepped out onto the porch, phone in hand. I'll run the photos through my private buyer list. We'll keep the address unlisted. Just the specs and the feel. You'll have a pulse by tomorrow. What if someone wants to see it? Then they can come Sunday, before your tenants return. I blinked. Tenants? Jordan grinned. If they're not owners, that's what they are. Next morning, the kettle hissed on the stove, soft and slow, like a whisper before a storm. I watched the steam curl upward, ribbons of heat dancing in my kitchen, their kitchen, if you asked Brittany, and let my fingers rest lightly on the rim of the chipped ceramic mug I refused to replace. The doorbell rang at exactly 10:02 a.m. I didn't rush. I walked calmly, my heels clicking across the hardwood she picked out to brighten the space. I opened the door to find a woman with warm eyes and tired shoulders standing beside a younger woman holding a folder and a phone. "Maria Delgado?" I asked. "Yes, and this is my sister Talia. She's the organized one." I smiled and stepped back. "Well, come in, take your time. This house has a lot to say." Maria walked in with the reverence of someone stepping into a story she hadn't finished reading. She paused just inside the doorway, eyes drifting up to the crown molding, then down the hallway bathed in late morning light. The house always looked best on Sundays, forgiving, like it wanted to be loved again. "Would you like some tea while you tour?" I asked, leading them toward the kitchen. "That would be lovely," Maria said. "It already smells like home." She meant the tea, but I let the words hang. I poured steaming cups of Earl Grey as they wandered, first into the dining room, where the table still bore the faint marks of 30 Thanksgivings, then into the living room, where the throw pillows Brittany chose had been replaced, just for today, with the ones I kept boxed in the garage, embroidered, homemade, and proud. Maria trailed her fingers across the fireplace mantel, pausing on the tiny sparrow statue, Greg's old art project, that I'd moved back into view. "Did you raise a family here?" she asked. "Every inch of it," I said, sliding the tea across the counter. "Now it's time for someone else to." She nodded, sipping. "The layout is perfect. My husband's on shift today, but I can already see our kids here. And this kitchen, wow." I let that sit a beat. Brittany's kitchen, Brittany's backsplash, Brittany's future, admired by someone who'd actually earned it. Talia stepped into the space beside her sister, flipping through her phone. "It's well below what we expected for this area, especially move-in ready." "Quick sale," I said simply. "I'm downsizing." Quietly. Before Maria could answer, the unmistakable click of the front door unlocking echoed down the hallway. I didn't flinch. I just lifted the kettle and refilled the pot. "Elaine?" Greg's voice. And then, "Why is the porch rug rolled up?" Brittany's heels struck the hardwood like a metronome of annoyance. "And where's the console table?" They came around the corner and froze in the kitchen doorway. Brittany, still in her puffer vest and designer sunglasses. Greg, in a hoodie and confusion. 3 seconds passed, then 5. "Who are these people?" Greg asked, his voice tight, already knowing the answer. I turned, calm as glass. "Greg, Brittany, meet Maria Delgado and her sister Talia. They're touring the house. She's a pediatric nurse, and she and her husband are looking to move in before summer break." Maria, bless her heart, stepped forward and offered a hand. "It's a beautiful home. We're really grateful for the opportunity." Greg didn't shake her hand. Brittany's mouth opened, then closed. Her face flickered through denial, confusion, and something that looked an awful lot like panic. I don't understand," Brittany stammered. "This is our pending paperwork," I said, sipping my tea. "Maria's already submitted an offer, full cash, closing in 2 weeks if all goes smoothly." Greg looked at me like I'd slapped him. "You're selling the house?" "I'm passing it on," I said evenly. "You said you wanted something modern. Maria seems to appreciate it." Brittany looked ready to explode. "You can't just—" "I can," I said. "And I am." Greg blinked hard but said nothing. His silence was the loudest thing in the room. I turned back to Maria and offered a gentle smile. "Let's give them a little space to picture themselves here, shall we?" Brittany cried in the hallway like a woman who'd just discovered grief, except the only thing dying was her illusion of permanence. "Elaine, you can't seriously be doing this," Greg said, voice low and tight, as if volume would change the facts. His eyes darted toward Maria, still chatting with Jordan near the foyer, then back to me. "Tell me this is a bluff." "I'm not bluffing," I said, folding the tea towel slowly on the counter. "I'm closing." "But this is our home," Brittany burst out. "We've made memories here. I just finished redecorating the guest bath." I gave her a long, steady look. "That's not a memory. That's a receipt." She blinked, mascara catching in the corners of her eyes. Greg stepped closer, his hands out, palms up like he was approaching a cornered animal. "Mom, come on. Why now? We didn't even know you were thinking of moving." "Because you never asked," I said softly. A silence bloomed, thick and humiliating for them. "I thought we were building something together," Brittany whispered. "A life here. With you. With family." "You were building around me, not with me," I replied. "There's a difference." She pressed the heels of her hands into her eyes, a tearful tantrum barely held back. This is manipulative. You're being cruel. Honestly, I think you're confused. Senile, maybe." That word hung in the air like a slap. I didn't flinch. Instead, I reached into the manila envelope Cassandra had handed me that morning and placed a single sheet of paper on the counter. "Legal verification," I said. "Sole ownership, no co-signers, no tenants with claim, no one's contesting anything." Greg stared at the paper, then looked back at me, stunned. "But we've been living here?" Brittany started. "Yes, and now you won't be," I said. "But what about everything we've done? The dinners, the garden? We put in so much work." "You treated it like a stepping stone. I treated it like a foundation," I said. "I built the house, you built assumptions." That landed harder than I thought it might. Brittany shook her head, voice rising. "You can't just kick us out like we're nobody." "You said it yourself," I said evenly. "I'm just his mother." Greg dropped onto a stool, rubbing the back of his neck. "You're overreacting," he muttered. Brittany didn't mean that the way it sounded. She said it to her parents. I wasn't supposed to hear it, but I did. He looked at me then. Really looked. And for a flash, I saw the boy who used to bring me coffee on Sundays while I gardened. The boy who told me everything, who trusted me. But that boy had grown into a man who let his wife shove me upstairs like a guest. Brittany slammed her palm on the counter, startling us all. "We'll take you to court." "If you think that'll go well, by all means," I said, turning to pour more tea. "But you'll need a better argument than, 'We lived here rent-free and thought we could stay forever.'" That shut her up. From the corner of my eye, I saw Cassandra walk in, calm and unreadable in a charcoal blazer. She handed me a fresh folder, nodded once, then placed a second copy of the document in front of Greg. "This is a 30-day notice to vacate," she said, enunciating like a teacher. "Filed and time-stamped." Greg's hands didn't move. Brittany stared like she'd never seen paper before. The sound of packing tape tearing through silence has a violence to it, sharp, final, bitter, like the end of a sentence someone didn't want to hear. From the top of the stairs, I watched Brittany crouched in the hallway, aggressively folding Greg's sweaters into a cardboard box marked closet. She didn't fold, she shoved. Wrinkled fabric, tangled socks, balled-up frustration. I could almost smell the resentment coming off her like perfume gone stale. Downstairs, Greg was half-heartedly wrapping framed photos in bubble wrap, the ones that once hung in my hallway. The ones she'd had reprinted in black and white to look more curated. I stayed quiet. I wasn't going to offer help. I'd given them comfort, space, time, even trust. all of it handled as carelessly as the now shattered snow globe in their seasonal decor box. "This is unbelievable," Brittany muttered to no one, tugging a suitcase out from under the bed. "We moved our whole life in here." "No," I said from the doorway, my voice calm. "You moved into mine." She startled, stood up too fast, bumped the closet door behind her. Her hair was a mess, and her mascara had started to smudge under her eyes. "You're seriously just standing there?" she snapped. "While we pack everything up like we're criminals?" "I'm standing here because I live here," I said. "For 38 years. Legally, emotionally, and financially." Greg came to the bottom of the stairs, one hand gripping the banister. "Mom, do you really have to watch us do this?" "I watched you erase me," I replied. "So, yes, I do." They said nothing. The house groaned in the afternoon heat, settling in that old way it did when the sun hit the windows just right, the kind of sound you only notice when you actually listen. An hour passed, then 2. I made a sandwich, read half a book. Brittany clomped down the stairs with a stack of legal envelopes in hand. "Where's the paperwork?" she asked Greg, her voice tight. "The copy of the deed, the trust packet, all of it." Greg, now barefoot and drained, shrugged. "I don't know. Mom keeps it in the file cabinet." "Why?" "Because," she hissed, flipping pages, "my name's not on anything." She froze mid-flip. Her face went pale, then red. "Are you serious right now?" She turned toward him, holding up a sheet. "You said she added us. You said it was handled." Greg looked at her like a man who'd just realized he'd brought a spoon to a gunfight. "I thought she did. I never checked." "You never checked?" Brittany's voice cracked. "Greg, we've been sleeping in a house I thought we owned." "You don't," I said, sipping my tea in the dining room. "Archway. You never did." Brittany turned to him, voice now something between a growl and a sob. "Go talk to her. Fix this." Greg looked at me, really looked, and there was something honest in his face now. Not hope, not even defiance, just tired resignation. "What do you want me to do?" he asked her, his voice thin. "She owns it. We lost." That silenced Brittany long enough for the front door to swing open. Jordan stepped inside, clipboard in hand, smile polite but firm. "Maria's ready," she said. "Cash cleared. She's flexible on closing, but wants a walkthrough before the end of the week." Brittany made a strangled sound in her throat and turned away, grabbing another box like it might save her. I followed Jordan to the porch, where a stack of taped-up cardboard now sat like gravestones of a future never earned. The air smelled of cut grass and citrus from the neighbor's tree. Summer was arriving early this year. Fitting. Inside, I heard Brittany pacing. Her phone buzzed. She answered on speaker, thinking I couldn't hear. "I don't know, Dad," she barked. "She tricked us." "No, Greg didn't check the paperwork. He assumed, and now everything's gone." She paused. "No, there's nothing we can do. We have 30 days. Her voice cracked then, the first real fracture. The morning sun poured through the front windows, casting golden stripes across the floors like nature's own blessing. The air smelled like lemon polish and something softer, lavender maybe. My mother's scent, long gone but lingering in memory. I stood in the entryway barefoot, watching light gather in the corners that used to hold shadows. Every room had been emptied of their presence. The boxed regrets were gone. The sighs, the slammed cabinet doors, even the curated clutter Brittany once insisted gave the house energy. Now, it had peace. A knock on the door broke the stillness. Not rushed, not urgent, just right. Maria stood there, smiling, understated, genuine. Beside her was a notary, a young woman in a navy blazer and sensible shoes, holding a black folder and a small leather briefcase. "Ready?" Maria asked. "I've been ready," I said, stepping aside to let them in. We moved into the dining room, now stripped of its centerpiece and place settings. Just a long wooden table that had held birthday cakes, tax folders, casseroles, and 25 years of holiday prayers. The notary laid out the paperwork with practiced precision. I sat at the head of the table, the place I hadn't been invited to sit in the last 2 Thanksgivings, and picked up the pen Cassandra had sent me in a velvet pouch. gold nib, weighted perfectly, like this signature mattered more than most. The silence in the room wasn't awkward, it was sacred. Maria said softly, "This is still hard for you, isn't it?" I looked at her. Brown eyes, soft lines around the mouth from smiling too much or too little, I couldn't tell. "No," I said. It was hard staying. The notary handed over the final document. A simple title transfer. Legal, binding, irreversible. I signed it with a steady hand. Outside, a black SUV pulled into the driveway fast, tires spitting up gravel. I didn't need to look. I knew that engine. Greg. He burst through the door before anyone could stop him, eyes wide, breath short. "Wait, Mom, please, just wait." I didn't move. Maria stepped back instinctively, her hand brushing the notary's arm. Greg looked at me, really looked, panic settling where arrogance used to be. "I didn't come to argue. I need you to know I'm sorry." Cassandra, already seated by the front window, spoke without turning. "You're too late. Everything's already filed." The notary nodded. "Transfer confirmed. Funds are already posted to the receiving account." "Which account?" Greg asked, voice breaking. "At least tell me you kept it in the family." I opened the envelope Cassandra had handed me earlier and pulled out the deposit slip. I placed it gently on the table. "It's in a trust, protected, private." Greg stepped back, stunned. "You actually did it?" "Yes," I said. "You watched it happen and thought I wouldn't finish. That's always been your mistake." He didn't respond. He didn't have anything left to offer but silence. I stood and walked over to Maria, placing a small white envelope in her hand. She opened it. Inside was a handwritten card on heavy cardstock, embossed with gold edges. "Respect built this home. Keep that alive. E.H." She looked up, eyes glassy. "I will." I walked her to the door, handed her the keys, 2 bronze copies on a ring engraved with the address, and smiled. "It's yours now." Maria looked past me into the house, then turned back. "Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for deserving it." As she stepped outside into the sunlight, her footsteps soft on the path, I reached into my purse. Greg stood there, unmoving, still waiting for something he couldn't name. I pulled out a small silver key on a plain ring. Clean. New. I turned it in my fingers, cool to the touch. A new home, already mine. I didn't pack a single photograph when I moved into the apartment. No wedding pictures, no baby footprints, no sun-faded Polaroids of birthdays in the backyard. They'd all become relics of a story that didn't end how I planned. I let them stay boxed in the attic of a house that wasn't mine anymore. The new apartment was downtown, a 3rd-floor corner unit with a crooked balcony and east-facing windows that caught the sunrise like it owed me something. The floors creaked in certain spots, and the building smelled faintly of roasted coffee from the bakery below. It was small. It was clean. It was mine. I arranged my furniture in quiet defiance of the Pinterest modern aesthetic Brittany had pushed into every corner of my old home. Nothing matched. That was the point. A red armchair, a green floral couch, a shelf full of real books, the kind you underline and dog-ear. This wasn't a showroom. It was a reclaiming. Cassandra came by the day after I moved in. She brought pastries and her briefcase. "Ready to talk about the legacy?" she asked, wiping sugar from her blazer sleeve. "Ready to rewrite it," I said. We sat at the little kitchen table I'd bought at a second-hand store, chipped edges, sturdy legs, and a story etched into every scuff. Cassandra opened a thick manila folder and pulled out the latest draft of my will. "As of now, Greg is still listed as the sole heir. Want me to change that?" I didn't even pause. "Remove him. And Brittany. Every line. Every dollar she didn't blink. Who gets the trust?" I handed her a note card with a name, Delia Morris, 27, nursing student, daughter of my best friend Evelyn, who died 5 years ago with nothing but hospital bills and a funeral registry. "Delia calls me every week, just to check in. Not because she wants anything," I said. "That's enough." Cassandra smiled. "It's more than most give." 2 days later, Greg called, then texted, then emailed. I didn't answer. He tried knocking once. I didn't open the door. He finally stopped when I left his keycard envelope, unopened, outside the lobby with a sticky note. "Return to sender." Then came Brittany's attack. Not direct, of course. Just a Facebook post. Some people age with grace, others rot with bitterness, but I guess that's what happens when you're afraid to pass the torch, and instead burn the whole house down. Family pain, toxic parents. Friends tagged me, sent screenshots. I didn't respond. I didn't even log in. Let her yell into the void. Cassandra, however, responded for me. She mailed a certified packet to their new temporary address, a small duplex rental across town, according to Jordan. Inside the envelope, a notarized copy of my revised will, trust documents, and a legal disclaimer barring contestation. The message wasn't subtle. You are no longer part of this narrative. Greg must have opened it, because at 9:13 p.m., my phone lit up one last time with a voicemail. I didn't answer. I didn't play it. I deleted it. I spent that evening watering my balcony herbs, basil, rosemary, mint. The night air was warm, buzzing with low city sounds. Somewhere below, a jazz band played softly from the brewery patio, and a couple laughed too loud. It wasn't silence, but it was peace. Around 11 p.m., a shadow passed beneath my building. Tall, hunched slightly, unmistakable even under the orange streetlight. Greg stood across the street staring up at my window. I didn't move. I didn't wave. He wouldn't have seen me anyway. Cassandra called the next morning to confirm everything was locked and finalized. "You're officially unburdened," she said. "Feels like a strange kind of freedom," I replied. Later that week, Delia dropped by with a sack of groceries and a loaf of banana bread she'd made too sweet. "You didn't have to bring anything," I told her. "I know," she said, "but you always made room for people who didn't have enough." I blinked, not because I was about to cry, but because I had almost forgotten what it felt like to be seen without expectation. We sat on the couch. She told me about her clinical rotation. I told her about the neighbor upstairs who walked like an elephant. She laughed, the kind of laugh that doesn't need an audience. Across town, I imagined Greg sitting at the table of a rental house he never wanted, holding a legal packet he couldn't argue with. They'd ripped out my roses without a second thought, all 7 bushes, dug up, tossed in black plastic contractor bags like yard waste, replaced with decorative gravel and succulents. Low maintenance, Brittany had said, so I replaced my entire address. Now, my mornings began with dirt under my fingernails and the faint scent of lemon thyme. The patio outside my third-floor apartment wasn't much, a slab of poured concrete with one loose tile and a short railing, but it got just enough morning light to coax basil and parsley out of the soil. Every morning, coffee in one hand, trowel. In the other, I tended to those little pots like they were secrets I'd decided to keep. Not because I had to, because I could. The neighbors here didn't ask where my son was. They didn't squint when I said I lived alone. No one here called me Mom in that way people do when they want something, or Ma'am like I might forget my own name. I was Elaine again, not a placeholder, not a burden, just myself. The woman in 3B, Marlene, brought over muffins the day I moved in. Her husband Pete fixed the laundry room vent just because he noticed the noise. And the college kid across the hall, he watered my plants while I was out volunteering. Yes, volunteering. Thursdays at the local elementary school library. Miss Elaine, the kids called me, like I was a character in one of the stories they couldn't wait to borrow. I showed them how to fold dog ears in the corners of books they loved. Just this once, I'd say. They grinned like it was rebellion. At night, I journaled. Always with dates. Always honest. March 7th. I didn't miss him today. March 11th. I do miss the sound of the screen door closing behind him when he used to come in for dinner. March 18th. I think I'm happy. I didn't expect that. One Thursday afternoon, walking back from the school, I decided to take a different route. Not because I was nostalgic, but because my legs wanted the incline and my heart didn't flinch at the thought. My old street looked the same from a distance. The magnolia tree still bent slightly over the curb like it was whispering something to the asphalt. But as I got closer, I saw the difference. The porch had been painted a cheerful robin's egg blue. Wind chimes hung by the door. Not the glassy, ornamental kind, but the metal ones that sang low and clear when the wind pushed just right. There were toys on the lawn, not abandoned, but loved. A tricycle leaned against the porch steps. A plastic watering can sat beside a pot of daisies, their petals curling open like they remembered how. Then I heard it. Laughter. A small, bubbling chorus of it, children's feet thumping across the porch, Maria's voice rising above them. Inside shoes off, outside shoes on, we just mopped, remember? And then, from the upstairs window, something sharper. Brittany. She stood behind the curtain, watching. Our eyes met for one long second. She didn't blink. Just stood there, her expression unreadable, mascara perfectly intact, hair still done, but something in her face had cracked in a way no concealer could hide. I smiled. Just a little. Not smug. Not cruel. Then I turned. I walked on. Steady, warm sun on my back, the street behind me shrinking with each step. There was no need to look again. I had already taken everything I needed. Next day, I sat across from Michael Tran, my financial advisor of over a decade, in his glass-walled office that overlooked the corner of Trade and 7th. The room was hushed except for the ticking of the small wooden clock on his desk, a gift from his first client, he once told me. He had a way of speaking without wasting air, which I appreciated. He slid a thick folder toward me and tapped it once. Final draft, Ms. Harper. Once you sign and notarize, this becomes your living trust. All assets, bank holdings, real property, and residuals will transfer according to this. You're sure about the changes? Absolutely, I said. My voice didn't waver. He didn't blink. We've removed Gregory Harper and Brittany Harper from all beneficiary designations, retirement accounts, and secondary rights. The trust is closed. No open contests allowed, and no provision for appeal unless initiated by you directly. Ever. I nodded once. Perfect. And the new primary beneficiary, Delia Morris, age 27, U.S. citizen, with no debt, no liens, no legal issues. Relationship to you, daughter of a deceased close friend with whom you have maintained personal contact and dependency over the past 3 years. Correct? Also correct, I said, signing the first page with the same pen I'd signed my mortgage with 38 years ago. Full circle. He adjusted his tie. You're also appointing a new healthcare proxy, correct? Replacing Gregory? Yes. Her name is Whitney Lowe. She's a hospice nurse. She held my hand the night Evelyn passed and didn't leave until sunrise. She's decent. No agenda. I trust her. She doesn't gain anything from the estate? Not a cent. Just medical decision rights. He leaned back, nodding. I've seen people regret decisions like this. You won't, will you? I already did the regretting, I said. Now I'm just finishing the paperwork. Outside the office, clouds gathered slowly, thick, woolly ones that promised rain. A storm was always a cleansing thing, if you let it be. That night, as if conjured by fate or gut instinct, Brittany cornered Greg in their rented duplex kitchen. He stood barefoot in front of the fridge, holding a carton of orange juice, not yet opened. You need to fix this, she snapped. Fix what? His voice was duller now, as if he'd run out of pitch. She's locking us out of everything. You think this is over? It's not. You're her son. Greg leaned against the counter, staring at the floor. And that's supposed to mean what? That she owes me? No, Brittany hissed. That she'll listen to you if you say the right things. You were always her favorite. Greg didn't respond. She stepped closer, softer now, weaponizing the hush in her voice. You just need to get back into her head a little. Talk about the house, about her legacy. Say what she wants to hear. Cry if you have to. His jaw twitched. You mean lie. If it gets us back in the will, I mean survive. He looked up at her then, something behind his eyes, not quite rage, not yet shame, but the ache of realization. She gave us more than we ever earned, he said, and we acted like it wasn't enough. Brittany opened her mouth, but nothing came out. For the first time, Greg didn't look like a man trying to win an argument. He looked like someone watching the scoreboard after the buzzer. Back in my apartment, I lit a candle and unfolded the notarized trust confirmation Cassandra had overnighted. The gold seal shimmered beneath my reading lamp. This document locks all assets and beneficiaries in accordance with the wishes of Elaine Harper. No party not explicitly named within may challenge, alter, or assume rights to this estate. It was done. The knock came at 10:14 a.m. on Mother's Day, not early enough to be thoughtful, not late enough to claim brunch traffic, just calculated. Like everything Brittany did. I didn't get up right away. I finished filling in the last clue in my crossword. 5-letter word for shameless display. Bravo. Appropriate. When I opened the door, Greg was standing behind a small department store bouquet, the kind that still had the price tag on the plastic wrap. Brittany held out a pastel pink gift bag, tissue paper fluffing out like it was trying too hard. "Happy Mother's Day," she said too brightly. "We thought we'd surprise you." "You did," I replied, voice neutral. "Come in." They stepped into my apartment like strangers in a model home. Greg glanced around, trying not to look impressed. Brittany's eyes darted from the mismatched throw pillows to the small bookshelf lined with mystery novels and cookbooks. Nothing curated, everything chosen. "You've made it cozy," Greg said. "I didn't have to compromise this time," I said. I accepted the flowers without a smile and nodded toward the kitchen counter. "Vase is there. Water's already cold." Brittany handed me the gift bag like it was a trophy. "It's a little something just for you." I sat on the couch and began pulling out the tissue paper, slowly, carefully, watching both of them watch me. A hint of nerves flickered in Brittany's expression. That was new. Beneath the tissue, there was a 3-pack of discount hand lotions, lavender, cucumber melon, and coconut breeze, the kind you find in the clearance aisle of a pharmacy. Behind it, a candle labeled Serenity, already marked down with a red sticker. I held it for a second, letting the weight of it fill the silence. "Thank you," I said coolly. "I've been running low on artificial scents and plastic tubes." Greg winced. Brittany's smile tightened, like a balloon being slowly squeezed. "You're welcome," she said anyway. "We thought you'd like something relaxing, self-care." "I've already started," I replied, folding the tissue back into the bag. "In fact, I think I'll do some this afternoon." Face mask. Silence. I returned to my crossword. The pen glided across the paper like they weren't even there. They lingered. Brittany spoke first. "So, we were thinking, maybe we could all do Easter this year together? Make it like it used to be." I looked up slowly. "This Easter? Next month?" "Yes," she said, her voice softening, practiced. "We'd love to spend some time together again. No expectations, just family." Greg nodded. "We thought it might be a step forward." "I already have plans," I said. "Oh," Brittany said. "Maybe we could join?" "No," I said. "They're private plans, with people who don't try to erase me after pie." Greg blinked, clearly caught off guard. "But we're family." I set the crossword on the side table and stood, smoothing the folds in my sweater. "You were." The word landed like a closing bell. Final. Clean. I moved toward the door and opened it. They both hesitated, still standing, still hoping. Brittany's eyes darted around the room one last time, like she was trying to memorize it, as if proximity alone might reverse time or consequences. "Thank you for stopping by," I said. Greg started to speak but stopped himself. The words didn't come. As they stepped into the hallway, I handed Greg the gift bag, lotion and all. "For Brittany. I think she needs it more than I do." Then I shut the door. Not hard, not cruel, just final. The future she claimed broke down on the front lawn, mascara streaked, barefoot, screaming beneath a porch she once believed belonged to her. I heard it before I saw it. A voice cracking in the distance, the sharp-edged pitch of someone unraveling. The kind of scream you'd expect outside a courthouse or on a canceled reality show. But this wasn't a show. It was Tuesday. I stepped out onto the sidewalk, 1 block away from the house I'd sold, now freshly painted with a new welcome mat that read, "Come as you are." Maria's hydrangeas had just started to bloom along the porch rail, pale blue petals catching sunlight like gossip. From my distance, it looked almost peaceful. Except for Brittany. She was standing on the front lawn, her phone clutched in one hand, the other waving wildly in the air like she could swat away the consequences. Her voice pierced the air in staccato bursts. "You stole it from us, Maria. You don't understand. We were supposed to live here. That house was ours. Maria appeared in the doorway, calm as ever, her hand resting protectively on her small but unmistakable baby bump. She didn't yell, didn't flinch. "Please leave," Maria said, her voice steady. "I'm pregnant. I'm not arguing with you." "You're what?" Brittany froze, the wind catching her hair and whipping it across her face. "You're having a baby? In my house?" Maria crossed her arms over her belly. "It was never your house, Brittany. You knew that. You just didn't want to believe it. I was promised this life. I decorated that kitchen. We had plans." "And I have a deed," Maria replied, stepping back into the house and closing the door with surgical precision. That broke something. Brittany threw her phone into the grass and began pounding on the front door, shrieking, "This was supposed to be mine! Mine!" A neighbor shouted from a porch across the street. "You want to dial it down, lady? People are working." But Brittany didn't hear anything except herself. She collapsed to her knees, fists in the lawn, sobbing with the kind of intensity that made you look away, not out of politeness, but shame. That's when the cruiser rolled up. 2 officers stepped out, young, calm, clearly having seen this show before. One approached her slowly, gently. "Ma'am, we've received a noise complaint. We need you to step off the property." "She took everything," Brittany choked. "She tricked us. That old woman, she gave this house away." "She sold it legally," the officer said, "and right now you're trespassing." Maria opened the door just enough to say, "I'd like her removed." That was all it took. Greg arrived 10 minutes later, breathless, hair still damp from a rushed shower. His car door hadn't even fully closed before he was on the sidewalk. "What happened?" he asked one of the officers. "I got a call she was here." The officer glanced at him, clipboard in hand. "Your wife came onto private property and caused a scene. We're issuing her a trespass warning. Next time, it won't be paperwork. It'll be cuffs." Brittany was seated on the curb now, face blotchy, mascara streaked to her jawline. She looked at Greg with a kind of desperation that no longer resembled love, only survival. "She's taking everything, Greg," she whispered. "I don't have anything left." Greg didn't reach for her. He looked toward the house where Maria stood behind the window with her hand resting gently on her belly, watching the scene unfold in silence. "You need to get in the car," he said quietly. Brittany broke again, sobbing, breathless, wild. "It was supposed to be our life. She ruined us." "No," Greg muttered. "We ruined it ourselves." I stayed on the sidewalk, far enough not to be seen, sipping my lemonade slowly from a travel tumbler. It was tart, clean, just sweet enough to go down easy. This wasn't revenge, it was gravity. What rises on lies eventually collapses under truth. The officer handed Brittany a form, his voice even. "You're not allowed to return to this property. If you do, you'll be arrested." She stared at the paper like it was written in a language she no longer understood. The cease and desist letter was printed on thick ivory stock and hand-signed in blue ink. Cassandra made sure every line of it was airtight. No further contact, no attempts to approach my new address, no communications via proxy. Not even a forwarded holiday card. I had given them a home, a history, and too many second chances. Now I was giving them a boundary. "I've filed the copies with the clerk and your digital archive," Cassandra said, sliding the envelope across the table at our favorite cafe. "Certified mail goes out this afternoon. You'll get the delivery confirmation in 2 days." "Good," I said, taking a sip of my black coffee. That was the last door they might try to rattle. "And the donation?" she asked. I smiled. Already processed. I had allocated $15,000 of the house sale to a local women's legal defense fund in honor of every woman who'd been steamrolled, gaslit, or quietly erased by people who assumed they could take without asking. It was a silent middle finger, camouflaged as community service, the best kind. Back at my apartment, the air smelled like lemon cake cooling on the counter. A breeze drifted in from the open window, lifting the linen curtains. The only sound was the low hum of jazz from the radio and the occasional bird staking claim to the nearby tree. Life these days was not loud, it was chosen. I spent my mornings walking the trail behind the elementary school, greeting the regulars, Mr. Clark with his golden retriever, Bernice in her purple windbreaker, and the teen from the bakery who always nodded but never spoke. I liked the rhythm of it all. Quiet routines, honest smiles. On Thursday evening, as I pulled a batch of cookies from the oven, my phone buzzed against the counter. I knew the number without having to look. Greg. I didn't answer, but I didn't delete it right away either. I poured a glass of milk, sat down at the table, and stared at the screen for a while. One new voicemail. I pressed play. His voice came through, thinner than I remembered. Tired. Uncertain. "Hey, Mom, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For a lot of things, I guess. I know it probably doesn't matter now, but..." I pressed delete. Not pause. Not save for later. Just gone. Some apologies come too late. Some were never meant for you at all. Just rehearsed guilt begging to be absolved. I walked over to my small desk near the window. A soft square parcel sat beside my stamps. Inside, a framed copy of the original house deed, mailed to me years ago after Henry passed. My name. Only mine. Clear and uncontested. I'd drawn a red circle around it. Not messy, not bitter, just a small, clean loop. I wrapped it in brown craft paper, placed it in a flat box, and addressed it to Greg and Brittany's rental unit. The return label read only, Elaine Harper. No note. No explanation. Some messages don't need words. The mailman picked it up the next morning without a question. Just a nod and a tip of his cap. By noon I was back home, kettle on, Billie Holiday playing low on the stereo. Outside, clouds moved in slow like they were in no rush to cry. The rain wouldn't come just yet. I put on soft socks, set a fresh lemon wedge in my teacup, and settled into the armchair by the window. The phone stayed silent. The doorbell did not ring. For the first time in months, there were no loose ends, not one. The dining table was old, bought second-hand from a church rummage sale, and sanded down until its oak top gleamed with quiet pride. It sat under a string of warm Edison bulbs I'd strung myself, just high enough to cast soft light without making anyone squint. The apartment smelled of rosemary chicken and baked apples, a scent that wrapped around you like a memory too good to let go. The place wasn't large, it wasn't polished, but it was full, with chairs pulled close, wine glasses mismatched but gleaming, and laughter that came in waves from people who had never tried to rewrite me. Maria arrived last, her belly gently rounding beneath a soft navy dress, her husband James beside her holding a warm pie wrapped in a dish towel. "Sorry we're late," Maria said, smiling. "We stopped by the house. The hydrangeas are finally blooming." "It's yours now," I said, ushering them in. "No need to apologize for visiting your own garden." They settled in like they'd always belonged. Around the table sat Delia, her nursing badge clipped to her cardigan, Marlene and Pete from down the hall, already on their second glass of Merlot, and Whitney, my healthcare proxy, who'd brought a small bouquet of yellow tulips just because she knew they made me smile. We passed dishes, refilled drinks, and traded stories like currency. There was no talk of Brittany, no mention of Greg, no empty performances of reconciliation. Just the slow, sacred rhythm of a table shared in good faith. After dessert, I stood with my glass raised. The room hushed naturally, not out of obligation, but attention. "To homes," I said, voice clear. "Not houses, not walls and ceilings. Homes, the kind you build with care, protect with loyalty, and only pass on to people who understand the difference between a gift and an expectation." Maria's hand slipped into James's beneath the table. Delia nodded, eyes glassy. "To homes," the room echoed. I reached beneath the table and pulled out a small linen envelope. Inside was a card, thick, cream-colored paper, handwritten in deep blue ink. I handed it to Maria. She opened it slowly, scanning the words, then looking up at me. "Don't let anyone erase you, not in your house, not in your story. E.H." Tears welled in her eyes. "I won't," she whispered. "I promise." The promise mattered, because someone had once looked me in the face, in my home, and said, "You're just his mother." As if proximity were power. As if marriage replaced memory. As if I hadn't poured my bones into the foundation beneath their feet. After dinner, I brought out a cloth-bound book. The cover a faded maroon, the pages thick and inviting. At the top of the first page, in gold ink, I had written, "Family by Choice." Each guest signed it. A name, a sentence, a moment. Marlene and Pete. Thank you for letting us grow beside you. Delia. For Evelyn, and for me, thank you for believing in something better. Whitney. For your strength, for your clarity, for your tea. Maria signed last. She paused over the page before writing, slowly and with a trembling hand. For all the futures you protected. I closed the book gently. Legacy didn't have to be about blood. It could be about intention. The next morning, a letter arrived. Thick envelope. Familiar handwriting. Greg. I held it in my hands for a long moment, then placed it on the windowsill next to the rosemary plant. Unopened. Some doors, once shut, are better left that way. That evening the sky burned orange and gold as I stepped onto the balcony. A soft breeze lifted my hair. From below I could hear music from the bakery and the clink of dishes from open patios. My world hummed, quiet and content. I didn't look back. Not at the letter. Not at what could have been. Because I knew what had been. And I knew what I had built from it. I may be just his mother, but I'm the one who gave him everything and took it back.